And now it's time to introduce our next presenter. That is Ankur Desai. He is the Director of Products at Robin Systems. Ankur, are you with us?
Yes.
Thanks for being on.
Thank you for handing over. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ankur Desai from Robin Systems. Thank you for joining the presentation today. Today we are going to talk about how to deliver big data and databases as a service on Kubernetes using the Robin Hyperconverged Kubernetes platform. And we'll also see 3 demos on how to deploy, scale, snapshot, and clone applications using one-click simplicity of Robin. So if you look at hyperconverged infrastructure, there is one driving principle, and that is simplicity. The reason HCI is so popular is basically, we are simplifying the experience of deploying applications and managing applications for the end users. Now, this is very, it's a unique way of looking at things where you don't focus on the infrastructure, but rather you focus on the applications that need to be delivered on the infrastructure. So traditional HCI solutions, they have solved this problem using a hypervisor-based approach, where the hypervisor is the central to the solution. But as we move towards containers as the preferred medium of virtualization over virtual machines, and if you're interested in learning more about why containers over virtual machines, containers are lightweight, they spin up faster, they are more portable, they consume fewer resources, and then they are more performant than virtual machines. So there's this whole wave going on in application modernization where people are modernizing the applications using containers rather than virtual machines. So now when that happens, virtual machines are being replaced by containers, and then you have to think about whether hypervisor as the central unit of your hyperconverged infrastructure is the right thing to do. And that's the driving principle behind our platform, where Kubernetes becomes the central driving unit instead of an hypervisor. Right? So with Robin, using Kubernetes, you can deploy any big data database on any on-prem data center, on in public cloud using one-click operations. Similarly, you can manage lifecycle for entire applications and the data that belong to those applications. And you can avoid any infrastructure and cloud lock-in. You can make your applications really portable across cloud and on-prem data centers. So let's look at our architecture and the principles behind it. We are a Kubernetes-based, completely software-defined hyperconverged solution. We are not an appliance. We don't ship with hardware. You can run Robin on your on-prem data center in virtual machines or bare metal, or you can choose to run Robin on AWS or Azure or Google Cloud Platform. The central unit of our orchestration platform is Kubernetes, because we will be deploying all the applications as containers, not virtual machines, because of the aforementioned benefits of the portability and lightweighted nature of containers. But beyond just Kubernetes, we add our built-in enterprise-grade storage stack to the platform. So this storage stack will give you the ability to create snapshot clones, and it will guarantee quality of service for your applications. Next, we add a virtual networking layer to Kubernetes. So this is OVS and Calico-based flexible networking, and we provide overlaid networking and persistent IPs for Kubernetes-based deployments. And on top of these 3 components, we have our application workflow manager. And this is the brain behind the operations. When you click on, let's say, Hortonworks in our App Store, the application workflow manager does everything behind the scenes for you. So for you, it's an App Store experience where you just click on an app in an App Store, everything happens by magic, and the application workflow manager is the magic or the magician behind that magic. And we'll also take a look at 3 demos today where we actually look at how to deploy applications using Robin. So without further ado, the first use case, deploying any big data and database application on Kubernetes. So let's say a developer wants to deploy a big data cluster like Hortonworks. Without Robin, they'll have to create an IT ticket for provisioning hardware, install Kubernetes, find the right containers for each service within the Hortonworks stack, set up storage volumes, configure affinity, anti-affinity if they could, if their storage provides anti-affinity rules. So all of this might take weeks and months. With Robin, you simply go to the App Store and you click on Hortonworks. You provide a couple of inputs, and within 15 minutes, your Hortonworks cluster will be up and running. Now, let's take a look at an actual demo of the product. So here I'm going to the App Store, and I clicked on Hortonworks. Now I have to provide some simple inputs, like what would I like to call my application? Let's say HTTP1. And what are the services I want to turn on? Because Hortonworks is a complex stack, I want to turn on Hive and Kafka, but not all the services. You can also modify the number of resources given to each service and simply say provision application. So within a few minutes, typically within 15 minutes, your Hortonworks cluster would be up and running. And this is, all of this is possible because of our hyperconverged Kubernetes platform, where we take care of provisioning all the storage volumes, making sure all the containers are in place for the services you have turned on, and making sure all the data locality as well as anti-affinity, affinity rules are in place when the Hortonworks cluster is finally up and running. And all of this happens within 15 minutes. The next use case is snapshotting and cloning entire application, including the data in it. So snapshots are useful when you want to recover from user errors or some data loss when you want to go back to a point in time. Whereas on the other hand, clones are useful for collaboration between, let's say, dev and QA teams. If you want to hand over the exact environment your dev team was using, including the data and including the cluster configuration to your QA team, if you want to replicate it, you can easily do that using a clone. Now, the key part here is the snapshots and clone Robin creates. They are not only for your data. We actually create a snapshot of the entire cluster. So if you want to go back in time where your MongoDB cluster was 3 nodes, now you have 4 nodes, and you want to go back to the point in time to what the data was at that point in time. So if you do the snapshot with Robin, you will actually get the cluster configuration as well as the data snapshot. Right, so that's a unique way of looking at snapshot, and that's what we do at Robin with our platform. So now, without Robin, if you want to create snapshots and clone for the entire application, it's not an easy task to do. You have to ask the storage admin to provide, storage volumes and then take the snapshot. You have to, if you want to create clones, if you have to ask the storage admin to clone all the volumes across partitions or database, stand up new VMs. All of these things might take a week or two. With Robin, it's very simple. You go to the App Store, you look at what applications you have running, simply say snapshot or clone the application, and you're done within a few minutes. So let's look at an actual demo. So this is a Cassandra dev cluster that I want to snapshot so that I can restore it to a point in time. I simply go to the cluster, to the application, and say create a snapshot. I'm going to name my snapshot snap1 and just say create, and that's it. Within a couple of minutes, actually ready. And this is a redirect on write snapshot, so it's pointing to the storage. And then if you want to create a clone from the snapshot so that your dev environment is handed over to your QA team, you simply go to the snapshot and create a clone from the snapshot. Right? So I name the clone clone1, and I say clone. Now, within a couple of minutes, my clone will be ready and available to be handed over to the QA team. So this is a really simple way of actually managing your applications and improving the collaboration between different parts of your DevOps team. The next use case is scaling your application, right? And scaling stateful applications, especially the big data applications like an Elk Stack or Hortonworks or a Cloudera application. It's not easy because there are different components to the data distribution or the data platform. And scaling each component might have its own nuances. For example, scaling name node in Hortonworks is completely different from scaling out data nodes, right? Because it's different roles each component is playing, and they are very unique in terms of how they operate. So all of that simplicity is brought to you by Robin by taking care of all the steps that are required to actually scale different nodes in complex data stacks. Right. So with Robin, once again, instead of taking hours and weeks to go through each step and different, developers and IT admins, you can simply go to the Robin console and just using simple one-click operations, you can scale your cluster out or scale it up. So now let's take a look at actually scaling up a name node in your Hortonworks environment. So this is the HDP cluster I deployed a minute ago. And now let's say if I want to scale up the name node, I simply go to the name node containers, go to QoS, and I say I want to add more CPU. Right. So from 1 CPU core, I have gone to 2, and I have also added more RAM. When I say apply, within a minute, without interrupting the operations of your cluster or your application, your name node has now actually scaled up. So if there was sudden demand for your name node or sudden demand for distributing data across the data nodes, which put stress on the name node, now it's really easy to do with a simple slider to actually add more resources in real time. So once again, to wrap it up, Robin allows you to focus on applications, not infrastructure. And with Robin, you can deploy any big data database application on-prem or in the cloud with one-click operations. We are not an appliance. We are a software-defined hyperconvergence solution. So you can choose your own commodity hardware, or you can run Robin in AWS, on Azure, or in Google Cloud Platform. Beyond the day one activities like provisioning and deployment, Robin also makes it easy to manage lifecycle for your application. For example, creating snapshots, clones, backups, upgrades, scaling with simple, using simple sliders. All of that is out of the box, and it gives the end users a self-service experience, making them more productive, right? And you avoid any infrastructure and cloud lock-in, because with Kubernetes, you get the ultimate portability, right? All cloud providers, public cloud providers support Kubernetes. Once you have your infrastructure built on Kubernetes, you have the portability of moving either among the cloud providers or simply running your own Kubernetes on-prem and managing it yourself. So Kubernetes gives you that ultimate portability across different infrastructure options. And with that, I will hand it over back to Debbie.
Yeah, great presentation, Ankur. Really fascinating stuff that you all are doing at Robin. So I've got a few questions for you. While we do those questions, let me leave up the poll question on the screen for the audience out there. It says, would you like to be one of the first to learn more about the Robin Systems solution? I'll just leave that up. So first question here is the Robin solution an option for companies with more traditional applications like traditional on-premises databases? Could the Robin solution help with use cases like that? Or what are the primary use cases?
Absolutely, yeah. So we help with all data-heavy applications. And when I say applications, I basically mean, in the container world, stateful applications are databases and big data, systems. So we actually have support for running Oracle on Kubernetes, even including Oracle RAC. So you can go to Robin App Store, click on Oracle RAC, simply state how many nodes you want, and within a few minutes, your Oracle RAC would be up and running on Kubernetes. We also support SAP HANA, MySQL, SQL Server. So all the relational database applications, or rather relational database systems, are supported by Robin. At the same time, we also support modern NoSQL databases like Cassandra, the DataStax version of Cassandra, MongoDB. All of these, are available in our App Store, what we like to call App Store. You simply go in there, click on the application you want to deploy, and within a few minutes, your application would be up and running. And this is a completely self-service experience. Once you set up the Robin cluster, for your developers, for your QA teams, for your data scientists, if you're into big data applications, for your data scientists and data engineers, this is a completely self-service experience where they go to the App Store and deploy applications themselves.
Very nice. A question that just came in here, they're asking, could Robin help in a private cloud environment?
Absolutely, yeah. So like I mentioned, we are not bound to any hardware or any cloud option. You can choose to run Robin in your private cloud on, if you have a virtual machine environment with vSphere or VMware, we actually run on top of the virtual machines too. But at the same time, we give you the portability. Once you are up and running on Robin, you have the portability of moving your applications across all the important public clouds, right? So at this point, we support AWS, Azure, and GCP. We plan to support more in future. But Robin is completely hardware agnostic and cloud agnostic. And basically, that is a benefit that is extended to the Robin platform from Kubernetes. You can run Kubernetes in private clouds or in your traditional on-prem data centers or in all the major public clouds. And Robin extends that same benefit to our customers.
Okay. A question just came in from Bruce. Am I running my SAP front ends and middleware on Robin, or would I just run the database?
So you can do both. Robin is not only limited to the databases, although that is typically the number one use cases our customers start with. But we have customers, for example, we have a customer called Lawrence Livermore. They are running the entire Oracle EBS application on Robin. That includes the database that is running underneath, but they are also containerizing EBS itself and running it on Kubernetes using Robin. So database is, especially in the DevOps world, the database is the first thing people do because there aren't many options to actually bring the agility of DevOps to databases. Robin, gives you that. But once people start on that journey, they realize that once you can create containers and those containers can be run on Kubernetes, there is actually no limit to what you can modernize. You can modernize the databases using Kubernetes and Docker, or you can actually go ahead and get the application layer embedded into one app, what we like to call an app at Robin, where you go to the App Store and you see the App Store, a private App Store for our customers. So the customer, the IT team decides what are the apps that should be available in the App Store for their developers, for their QA, for their data scientists, and those are the apps that are made available.
Okay, nice. And then follow-up question here from Bruce. He's asking about the time frame to architect a move of an existing application to Robin. What's it take to migrate an app? I'm sure it depends a lot, but do you have any general ideas?
Yes. Yeah. So at Robin, the typical migration could be less than a month, and the reason for that is we don't actually recommend, or we don't force you to refactor your application code. We don't force you to create microservices. We don't force you to change the entire application before you actually run it on Kubernetes. What we do is basically we use Linux containers. We will wrap everything you have running in, let's say, your SAP application or Oracle EBS application, and then we create the container for you, right? So it's not re-architecting the application itself, rather than just benefiting from the modern architecture that Kubernetes provides, and using Kubernetes and Docker containers, or rather Linux containers, we extend the benefits of modern microservices-based environments to legacy applications like Oracle EBS and SAP Business Suite.
Okay. And since Robin is just a software solution, I mean, it's only a software solution. You don't have to purchase hardware to run it on.
Yeah.
Or Robin's not selling hardware, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I would think it would be relatively easy to do a POC. How does that process work?
So it's a really simple process. Just get in touch with us. We'll help you through the process. There's a simple requirement where we have a prerequisite that you have to match, because even though it can run on any hardware, there are basically some hardware prerequisite. But that is a simple script you have to run, and once you're ready, you should be able to get Robin up and running and actually do the POC and get it into the hands of the end users within a week.
Very nice. Very nice. Sounds easy. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions we have. Great presentation. Thanks for being on the event today, Ankar.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.